In 2016, I was driving in Mississippi, and a state trooper pulled me over. I was driving impeccably and fully sober. With no probable cause beyond long hair and a Connecticut license plate, I was asked to step out of my vehicle. After I begrudgingly performed the unnecessary sobriety tests, the officer went to the passenger seat and asked the passenger, an older woman who was walking alone on the highway that I had stopped and offered a ride to also step out. His partner spoke to her as he then turned to me and presented his palm with a small bud of marijuana in it and said, "I just found this in your passenger seat." I knew immediately that he had pulled this out of his pocket. I knew with certainty because, A, I have never smoked in my car before. I do not smoke in my car. I smoke ganja in cool places, like by a waterfall. Smoking in my car would be super lame, and I have never done so in my life. B, if I were to smoke ganja in my car, even though I never have before, I would do so in the driver's seat, as that is where I sit. And C, even if I were to be sitting in the passenger seat for some reason and decided to waste a ganja smoke sesh by smoking in my car, I am super careful with this stuff. It is a sacred medicine. It can save lives, and I don't waste a speck of it. Yet somehow, there was a sizable chunk of it sitting in my passenger seat. If it was actually my passenger's ganja, this was never considered, as I immediately responded, no. To which the officer did not respond and wasted no time searching my car for further evidence. After perhaps 15 minutes of all of my things being pulled out onto the side of the highway, it's highly illegal, the corrupted authority figure found my actual ganja in my trunk, about a palmful worth of it, and decided this was all he needed to arrest me. Handcuffed, with some twisted game of good cop, bad cop being played by the two officers present with me, I was asked if I would consent to a blood test. No, I said. Why? Because I don't like needles. Will you consent to a urine test? No, I said. Why? Because I don't like peeing in cups. What I was trying to say was that I find doing so demeaning, and he and I both knew full well that this was a charade and an injustice, and I didn't deserve to be arrested nor threatened into urinating in a cup for my villainous captors. So I was driven to the nearby jail, and, after the corrupted authorities' attempts to entrap me into incriminating myself failed, he seemed perturbed and threatened to, quote, put me in the cell with the guy that they've been having problems with, and that I would be, quote, raped. Beyond the horror of the situation, I trained jiu-jitsu, so I was simply confident I'd handle this problem of theirs for them. I found this highly unprofessional and was deeply horrified at the corruption of authority guilty in front of me and against me, though not surprised, as I'd heard of corruption in Mississippi years and years before. I don't know what Mississippi law states, but I know that ganja is a medicine, and so laws against it are archaic and unscientific. In my 3 days in jail, meeting several other people that were also imprisoned for some small amount of the medicine in their possession, a few also claiming it had been planted, I learned how Mississippi authorities like to use this law to shake down the local population and steal their money, harass and oppress people that aren't white, isolate women, and harass and tax their cultural nemesis and political opposition. That would be me, a long-haired dude from Connecticut. Thus, I was framed and arrested. The details of how this worked out in court and my mighty efforts to fight this injustice are written in the comments of the video. But to jump to the present moment, I have received these 2 bills from the corrupt court. They're Yankee tax, claiming I owe them a ridiculous amount of money for 2 fabricated charges. $303.75 for careless driving. As I said, I was driving perfectly. I even drive the speed limit. There is no evidence of their charge, only a known crooked cop fabricating the claim to give him justification for pulling over a car with a Connecticut plate. And $1,298.25 for driving under the influence. In actuality, I had not partaken of ganja in about 2 weeks, and I never imbibe alcohol. I know that by a blood test, the results will show positive for ganja a month after intaking, and courts that are trying to steal money from people, such as this one, will claim that is evidence of inebriation at the wheel, even though we all know such inebriation lasts for a few hours, not days nor weeks. So no, I was not high on ganja at the wheel, nor any other substance. I was actually on my way to New Orleans to try to win back the love of a woman I loved, who had left me for another man, and or save her when that man abandoned her there, the latter of which I actually would end up doing. It also must be noted that I am fully aware of Mississippi's position of complicity and support to the corrupted Trumpian regime, which is treasonous to this country and seeks to impose eugenics and white nationalism, collapse the economy, and dismantle our democracy to then replace it with a fascist autocracy and recreate what once was U.S. America as a dystopian Confederate image of itself. These villains, with the state of Mississippi's support, have already engaged in all of this and continued to work towards it, August 29th, 2025, as well as continued to support the Netta regime's massacre of innocent Palestinian people, as well as betrayed our European allies and neighbors and friends, and also have literally stolen from the poor as the USAID program was completely cut, leaving displaced and famine-stricken peoples, so many children, who were dependent upon those resources for life-saving food and medicine, suddenly to perish without, as many have already and are as I speak. That money, instead of directing those resources properly, is instead part of the spread now being served to the wealthiest among us. The Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy states that the top 1% by income will receive tax cuts totaling $1.02 trillion over the next decade from the Big Betrayal Bill. So, here is my message to Mississippi Court Collections, Inc. Do you honestly think I'm going to send you one damn penny to your godforsaken court? Do you think I'm going to reward you for your injustices? Do you think I'm going to turn my back on starving children so you can waste these funds on your meaningless wealth, poisons you are slave to, propaganda to corrupt the population, and sedition to topple our country's democracy? It would be treason of me to give you a dime, and cowardice of me to fear your weak warrants. Many of you claim to be Christian, but it is you who turn your back to Jesus, not I. You are the corrupted court, the horror that turns the American dream to a nightmare, the fools who betray their country, their families, and themselves for the mere profit of illusion. And now here you are, sending me ink upon paper, claiming that for the privilege of being discriminated against by you, I owe you something. A sizable amount, in fact, that could save many lives abroad. Resource shortages and refugees from war in Uganda, drought and refugees from instability in Somalia, refugees of war in Mali, extreme hunger and poverty in Haiti, refugees from instability in Burkina Faso, millions of refugees from civil war and drought in Syria, millions of refugees from instability in Myanmar, refugees of war and starvation in Lebanon and Palestine, famine from flooding and refugees of war in South Sudan, and the largest humanitarian crisis on record in Sudan. This is what a true patriot sounds like. The likes of you treasonous Confederate supporters will never understand. This is what a true believer of Christ sounds like. The likes of you pretenders will never know. And I know this, for I see what you do. You turn your backs to the starving children as you betray your countrymen and attempt to steal their money by arresting them with fabricated evidence, or perhaps simply unlawfully and unjustly. Your betrayed brothers are then thrown into your jailing systems, which you've ironed out to iron your brothers' coffers out to the fullest possible extent, threatening to besmirch their record further or deprive their liberty when they refuse to bow to your tyranny. So of course, I hold absolute utter contempt for your despicable, hypocritical, greedy, oath-breaking court. You will never have a dollar of mine.